Welcome back, crew. With D&D 2024 or 5.5e, whatever you may want to call it, releasing this week, I thought it'd be cool to throw a spotlight on some other amazing fantasy tabletop RPGs that are currently out in the market. Because while 5e is definitely the juggernaut in the industry, there's a lot of other great fantasy TTRPGs could be a great fit for you and your group that just may not have made their way to your table yet. So I'm going to go through my top three, highlighting what I like about them, what players may be a good fit for them, and some cons to consider as well as you go through for selecting your fantasy TTRPG. So definitely shout out in the comments some of your favorite as we go through. But let's dive in. And I wanted to start off with my honorable mentions because I had a huge list. And I'm like, let's narrow this down to three so it's not an hour video. A couple of my big favorites that aren't going to be covered in depth. Symbaroum, amazing free league game, especially if you like kind of a spooky feel to it as well. Also from Free League, The One Ring. Definitely fantasy, but it's more kind of the Lord of the Rings fantasy, Middle Earth fantasy, I should say. So if you like that, check it out. Also, one of the ones too I wanted to call out was Dragon Bane, also Free League. I didn't realize all three were Free League, but those are also three really good fantasy TTRPGs that I loved, enjoyed playing, and I recommend highly to check out. Now, for some that I haven't played, that I've heard really good things about, or may not have just been my cup of tea, Fantasy Age, I've heard a lot of great things. We've done a little bit of coverage of Dragon Age, but I haven't had a chance to play that system at the table. It's by Green Ronin, and highly recommend checking that out too. Also, along that same lines, are Shadow of the Demon Lord slash Weird Wizard, the new update that came out. I haven't had a chance to play those, but I've heard really good things for those systems. So definitely worth checking out if my top three don't hit where you're going for. And then the final one I'll say for the honorable mention section, if you do want a fantasy RPG that's a lot more narrative, that uses the PBTA or Powered by the Apocalypse style, Dragon or Dungeon World will be a great one to try out. It's a PBTA system, very narrative focused, light rule set, quick, lightweight. I played it before. It's a good game system. It's not one of my favorites, but I highly recommend it for players looking for a more narrative experience and less on the crunch and some of the options and other mechanics that come along with the true fantasy RPG. So, highly recommend those. But let's dive into my top three. I'm going to start with the one that I've actually made a dedicated game system. It's no surprise. We're going to go through Pathfinder 2E first. If you haven't seen on the channel, we play a lot of that here. Check out Pandemonium, it's our ongoing campaign. But this is the system I transitioned to from as my ongoing campaign system from 5e. Nice thing with it, if the type of player that's going to gravitate for a player or game master is one that likes a lot of character options, isn't overwhelmed by too many options. They like a tactical game. They like their players and game masters and monsters all to have cool things that they can do that make each battle feel unique. They like to have mechanics support or a rule set that supports the mechanics with baked in rules without having to rely upon a lot of rulings. The game master still has a lot of leeway, but it's not one where you're going to be kind of inventing the wheel each time you play when a situation comes up. I really enjoyed this one. I think a lot of 5e players, especially ones who've complained about the lack of kind of tactical ability, the martial caster disparity, the kind of character options, and being able to flesh out a character and make it feel different from somebody else that's playing that same class. This is where Pathfinder 2e will come in and shine. This is definitely where you can really find your mark. For the roses, I know I've covered a couple of them. My biggest things I enjoy for this system, there's a lot of cool tactics that players can do. Uh, Check out, actually, I'll throw a link down below because for our last encounter, the players do utilize a lot of cool tactics mixed with grappling and range to take out a threat that was pretty well beyond their level and do so with style. So that's really one of the pieces I enjoy with it. Is so if you have a team that's tactically minded, it's such a great fit. Now, on the cons for that side, and actually one last big major rose for this, and shout outs to Paizo for it. The rules are online for free. Every rule for they've made outside of like their setting kind of setting fictional materials, everything that Pathfinder 2e has is out there for free. You can go to Archives of Nethys, you can go to Demiplane, wherever you like. You can go through and find their rules and start playing right today for $0. And also with their rules being free, it gives a lot of opportunities for like Foundry to do great, amazing support for the virtual tabletops field. So really big shout out. That's a major rose. For the cons, one of the roses being tactically oriented is also a con if your players aren't the type to really engage with system mechanics and tactics. I don't think Pathfinder is more complex than, or significantly more complex than D&D 5e, but it's one that it does require a little bit more player investment. Especially it does require a little bit more teamwork and tactics, and I love that it requires that, but for certain tables that may not be a good fit. Uh, with that too, it also does require your players to know a little bit more rules, and it's definitely one that I think would be hard to play without a grid if you do enjoy gridless combat, a more theater of the mind style combat. But definitely one of my favorites. Last plug for Pandemonium. I'll throw a link down there. But if you want to see this system played out, we've got 2 seasons worth of Pathfinder 2e gameplay, and it's been a blast for me and the crew. But let's move on to my next one. So this is another one that we've covered, or we haven't covered directly on the channel, but one I enjoyed significantly. This is going to be by Kevin Crawford, the Worlds Without Numbers system. So this is a fantasy version. It's an OSR style game. For those who aren't familiar with it, the OSR style games are going to be a little bit. They're very easy to build a character, very easy to learn the core rule sets. They're a little bit deadlier. They're kind of bringing back to kind of like the older versions of like D&D and some of the older versions of like systems that are out there. And that's just kind of OSR as a whole. But where Worlds About Numbers stand out is first off, the system is completely free. And well, want to put a little bit of a distinction between how Paizo does their free and how Kevin Crawford does his free. Paizo, you can go online to either of those websites I mentioned and find all the rules. Kevin Crawford allows you to download a free PDF with the core rulebook with just a few of the pieces missing that you have to pay for to get. Like, it's so much cool stuff, so many resources and different ways to play the game with them. You could run the whole game on the free version without needing to go out and buy anything. The other pieces that are in there are usually just kind of more complex things you can add on to your game to even enhance it. So for the type of player that I'd recommend Worlds Without Number to, it's one, and there's rules to offset this, but it is on experience level. It is a more deadly game, so it's one that I would players that are like dungeon crawling are okay with losing players or losing characters, uh, but want to make sure that they can kind of go through and have the odds against them and still succeed. With kind of figuring out how to creatively utilize their skills and kind of think through their problems, this is definitely a system I'd recommend. This is one of my favorite OSRs too, because sometimes the OSRs they can feel limited in the things that they have, but this system has so many different subsystems, good magic, good fleshed out options for your characters. You could really go through and have fun build options while going through it, even with them being more of a simplified kind of character style, and have some fun and have uniqueness with your characters too. It's not one of the OSRs where you feel like there just isn't really much mechanically that's directly designed to do. There's a lot of cool options. So I highly recommend this one. Big thing, completely free. Want to shout that out again. Especially even though if you do have the option to, or the ability to go through and buy the PDF or buy the hardcover book, highly recommend doing it. It's really great that Kevin Crawford does this because it also allows the Foundry, Roll20, the virtual tabletops to be able to put all this stuff in there and make it easy and accessible to play. Cons on this one though. For some, I think there's a lot of great options, especially for the OSR field, but it is still that OSR style. And if you are coming even from 5e or even especially Pathfinder 2e or some of the others, it can feel like the character there's not enough character options, or the character options can feel a little underwhelming. Um, I don't feel that too badly, especially if you're coming in with the OSR style mindset. Um, with that too, if you are somebody that gets very attached to your characters without running their heroic variant rule, that's more likely to happen. It's something that's one of the not staples of the system, but just definitely one of the things the system is designed around is that combat is deadly, and it's likely to lose someone if you go into a fight. Uh, last big thing on that side is like it does have good progression rules, but if it's not going to be one of those ones like for 5e, even Pathfinder 2e, where you go from zero to earth-shattering hero. So it's one of those ones that's going to be a smaller progression within that. But highly recommended. Definitely one of my top three fantasy RPGs, and especially since you can start it completely for free and get into the game. So with that, we're going to move into my last one. This is another one that we covered on the channel. This is 13th Age by Pelgrane Press. Nice thing with this too is there's a 2E that's coming around the corner. I'm not sure exactly when it released. I kickstarted it, but I need to take a look at those dates again. But this one is going to be a good balance for a lot of people for 5e. For 5e, if you like kind of more theater of the mind style combat, if you like a lot of system generated narrative pieces, if you like still having kind of character progression, a lot of character options and ways to customize your character, and still bits of or still a decent backing of tactical combat, 13th Age will be a great RPG for you. This one was one of my favorites we played on the channel, especially because I like that it's theater of the mind. I enjoy running theater of the mind when I can, and it's always great when the system supports that natively. So definitely recommend it on that side. Especially I like the 13th kind of 13 paragons or 13 I forgot the 13 keep NPCs and they kind of the rules they have within to link yourself to them, finding ones you ally with, some you oppose. It's just a really cool way to build and tie characters into the world right at the start of character creation and give you some ideas of the game master as well as the player for how you fit into the world. I loved that there. I enjoyed the combat. I enjoyed the character options with it. It's just a lot of cool things came along with this one. It's one that I kind of say it's a little less crunchy than 5e, but also really supports narrative play really well. It's a strong fit. I mean, definitely recommend checking it out right now, but keep an eye out for 2e. I know they're going to be updating and changing some pieces. I think the system's like 10 or so years old on its face, so a lot of cool updates coming with the new variant of the system as well. Uh, Big thing I will say for this one is just really great if you like tactical character options, like strong narrative built-in pieces to the system, and if you like it easy to play and you don't have to worry about a grid, 13th Age will be the game for you. Now, on the con side for it, I will say some of the rule systems are a little bit fiddly and can sometimes be not convoluted, but can sometimes just be overwrought, I would say. Definitely throw a link down in my review or go a little bit more in depth in it. But sometimes, like the rules like intercept and some pieces for that, it can slow it down until you get used to it. But definitely not a major deterrent. It's just one of those ones that you gotta see what fits for you. And as I always encourage, homebrew what you don't like and tweak what you do. But overall, this is kind of a quick look at some of my favorite fantasy RPGs. With the new 5e or 5.5e or 2024 coming out, I thought it was a great time to put a little bit of spotlight on some of those games out there. Just in case if you are kind of tired of the 5e style, or if you want to branch out and see other RPGs that are out there that you like the fantasy system or fantasy backing, check out these three. Check out some of the honorable mentions, or even just go through your local TTRPG store or drive through RPG, wherever you get them from, and take a look and see what else are out there for fantasy RPGs. There's a lot. It's a huge market, probably the biggest it's ever been, with so many cool options. So don't hamstrung or don't tie yourself down to just one, especially if it's not doing everything that you want for your game. Yeah, thanks for hanging out with me. Definitely shout out in the comments some other RPG systems that you think would be a good fit for this too, or even some roses and thorns for the systems that I didn't get to cover for my big three or honorable mentions. But thanks for hanging out, guys, and until next time.